wait, and wait.
Respect! 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 Respect!
That is always going to make me laugh. Hello and welcome back to Toronto Till I Die, the Toronto FC fan show. I'm Mike Newell, and it's official. Lorenzo Insigne is a Toronto man's after his now famous argument with TFC fans in the injury suite at BMO Field on Saturday. What a way to walk into your first day on the job, or at least your first official day, John Herdman. So welcome. You got to deal with that. On today's show, we'll briefly react to TFC's 3-2 loss to the 2023 Shield winners, FC Cincinnati. We'll talk about a little bit about Herdman's first day, and of course, we'll get into the burning question presented by Nextdoor and all the comments coming here on the live feed. Lots to dig into. As you can see, no Michael Singh. He's chilling on the West Coast, but we do have myself and Jeffrey P. Nesker on board with you. JPN, how you doing, man?
I'm great, man. We are a well-traveled podcast. Between the three of us, we are like just racking up those frequent flyer miles. I mean, this is pretty awesome. We're like Renaissance men here. Yeah. Congratulations to FC Cincinnati. It didn't mean that I had to stick around and watch you win the Shield in our house, though. So, yeah.
Yeah, I took off. Maybe like 3 minutes before the final whistle. I'm like, okay. I don't necessarily need to see them spraying water bottles and jumping up and down all over the pitch. I did feel good for Nick Hagglund. I saw his post. And I was like, all right. Well, Nick Hagglund's got himself another Shield, so good for him.
Yeah, and I loved to see it. The fans meeting the players at like 1 a.m. back in Cincinnati at the airport was lots of fun. You know, they brought out the bubble machines and they really made a go of it. So it's so nice to see. You know, it really does warm the heart when you see a long suffering fan base, you know, get their comeuppance and sort of ride the crest to a wave to the top of the league. We were there ourselves, so it's pretty familiar. And you know, as much as I absolutely refused to be at BMO for the celebrations, it was nice to revisit them later. It was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, look, we were there. It was once a nice warm blanket that's now cold and threadbare and has holes all through it. But we still have those memories. But I really want to talk about that video. Okay, just really quickly. I want to.
Yeah, damn right.
If you're in TFC land and have been living under a rock for the last couple of days, a video emerged after Saturday night's game at BMO Field where Lorenzo Insigne got into an argument with a TFC fan, TFC fans, plural. I don't know the full context. I've heard several different accounts of what happened. But Lorenzo Insigne was in the injury suite, basically, if you want to call it that, FC injury suite. Where all players that are not in the 18 and injured, are actually in that suite around, I think, like 126 or 127 in the stadium. And somebody got into it with him. I don't know exactly, again, the context of how it started. There's been several reports that fans were going after him a little bit. And obviously he was giving it back. Now, granted, his wife and children were also in the suite, which, before we get into the reason I find that video incredibly funny, there is a serious matter. Look, I get it. Like, professional athletes are there. When they're on the field, you know, you're critiquing their performances. You're critiquing the way that they're representing your club in that regard. But when the guy's with his wife and family, man, like, I don't know. I have a hard time with that. That's a line I'm not really that cool about crossing. I don't know how you feel about that, Jeff, but like, before we get into sort of the more lighthearted stuff, there is that. And I'm not, you know, I get it. Look, like I get, like, you know, Kings of North used to sit in that pie corner 127 where that injury suite currently is. So you used to see injured players all the time. And there was a moment I remember back in the day where some of the supporters got on Jermaine Defoe. He wasn't in the suite, but his mother and some of his cousins were in the suite, and they heard some stuff about Jermaine Defoe. And, you know, like, There
Yeah,
is a
yeah.
slightly funny side to it, but there also is this like human side to it as well.
Yeah, and I think the line is getting dangerously close to being crossed, if not crossed already. I would say it's been crossed already, but just the general, everything is so lax with this club that it's not surprising that common sense and social mores and etiquette and sort of the line between fan and player and the right and the wrong time to levy criticism is also kind of disappeared, and there's no responsibility, if we're going to attack this from all angles, you got to have some balls to sit on the patio of that suite with or without your family, considering your efficacy at the club so far. So there's that, right? Like you don't go looking for trouble, and I would say that maybe he did to a certain degree, but that doesn't excuse it. It doesn't excuse it. And you and I have both heard uh, different fan fiction about how it started. Certainly, I've heard much more reliable information about how it ended. To the point that I think I could safely say that it came down to one person, and they were summarily lifetime banned from the stadium and left with their tail between their legs, crying all the way home. Um, but yeah, it's just it speaks volumes to sort of the what's going on at this club where all bets are off. I think the fault lies everywhere. But at the end of the day, uh, there is no universe where it's okay for a fan to harass a player on the pitch, off the pitch, in the industry street suite, and certainly you would think that when push comes to shove and maybe the first exchange happens, you realize the man's there with his family and cooler heads prevail. And I think that's where this one goes right off the deep end, is that cooler heads didn't prevail. And they see it seems to be in all um, dealings with the club, this and everything else, cooler heads just aren't prevailing. It's like, there are so many triggers to go from A to Z or Z, and instead of taking a moment and having a breath, you just go straight to 1,000 or go straight to the end, and it's indicative. I mean, we're seeing it all over the place.
Yeah, it's look, we've kind of run out of words for to describe this season and how things have gone so horribly wrong
Mm.
in this 2023 season. And this is just it's a symptom, right? It's a symptom of the greater issues at the club, where there feels like there is a disconnect between fan and players right now. Everybody talks
Mm-hmm.
about, look, the 16, 17, even 18, even though that wasn't a great season, 19 team. Like that team, it felt like it was really close to the supporters, even if they weren't close themselves as teammates. Like if they weren't,
Mm-hmm.
going out and hanging out at a Shoeless Joe's after. I'm not saying these guys would hang out at a Shoeless
I mean,
Joe's,
they're
but you
professional
know what I mean?
soccer players. They eat
Yeah.
boiled chicken. They eat 10 months out of the year, boiled chicken and
Yeah.
rice, all three meals. Like going to a Shoeless Joe's when you can't drink and you have to order, a chicken breast doesn't exactly feel like a good time out on the town.
Yeah,
So
but I mean, like,
yeah.
I think there is this whole idea that supporters just don't feel like they're very connected to this team, and because you don't feel that connection, it becomes maybe a little bit easier to cast some stones. Metaphorically speaking, nobody actually threw anything at Lorenzo, just metaphorically.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm glad you brought
It,
that up
yeah,
because it's an
yeah.
easy association to make.
Exactly. But I mean, like, they, it becomes easier, and people feel like they can do that because there is so much frustration. And again, I get it,
Yeah.
but that said, man, Lorenzo Insigne's reaction,
Well, before you get into the
okay,
lead,
go ahead.
I think Boomslang, because we are going to go heavy on the comments today because we're
Sure.
missing a person. So Boomslang, pretty obvious. Lorenzo Insigne does not pay much attention to the fan base in TO or his coddled and fanboy group that affirms him all the time. You know, that speaks to my point, right? Like, you don't go looking for trouble, and this guy is there is. I'm not excusing the situation in any way, shape, and form whatsoever, even though it kind of sounds like I am. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate a little bit. Like, you don't, there are ways and means to do things, and as much as it was totally inexcusable, maybe parading the fam out at a BMO when you're injured for the upteenth time in a highly visible place maybe isn't the move either. You know what I mean? Like
Um,
there, I do have to say something to that effect, right? Like,
Fair
listen, it's all
enough.
gone ridiculous. People on Twitter are saying, why wasn't he down on the bench with his teammates, which ignores the fact that he wasn't named to the game day squad. It's
Yeah, you're
not
not supposed to
possible
be
for him
down
to be
there.
sitting on the
Yeah.
bench with his teammates. In fact, he was where he was supposed to be. But there is, I could make the argument, maybe don't get the spotlight shining on you. Don't go looking for the camera angles and the cameo appearances on the broadcast, because the team's kind of crap right now. So it does, there is a part of, I could capably argue that it speaks to that disconnect. Like, I'm not saying hide, but I am saying when you go looking for trouble, often you're gonna find it.
But that's
And
essentially what you're kind of like. I'm not saying,
mm,
I that's kind of what you're saying. Like you are saying kind of hide, right? Like what else is he supposed to do? Where else is he supposed to go in the stadium, right? Like
yeah,
unless because
yeah.
it's a bigger. Well, here, hold on, because like if he
Mhm.
doesn't go to the suite, what he's supposed that suite's not like the biggest place in the world. He's just gonna hang out there the entire in this tiny room the entire game. And then the other option is he doesn't show up at all. And then the bigger story is Lorenzo Insigne isn't even coming out to watch the team while he's hurt. He's in town, but he's hanging out, in his his mansion and not with the team, right? So like there's almost like a no-win situation there for him. Like if he sits outside, people take shots at him. Maybe you agree that he deserves it in a certain way.
Mhm.
But the idea that he's just going to sit in a box and never show his face outside, I think that's a little much, right? Like, look, he's a
No, I
professional
agree.
athlete.
I agree.
Yeah, he's a professional athlete, and
Mm.
he expects and he will know that there's a certain amount of criticism, and I think even he himself will admit to a certain extent that look, he's not been anywhere near good enough, since he has been here. Uh,
Hmm.
but I don't think there is again, like we said, there is a line. There is a point where
Yeah.
if your wife and kids are out there, like, come on, man. Like,
Yeah.
yelling at him is
Yeah.
not going to solve right now TFC's
He's
defensive
not going to
struggles.
start crying and quit the team.
Well,
Like,
he's
what's
not,
the end game?
yeah,
You know what I
and
mean?
yelling at
Yeah.
him while he's sitting in the injury suite is not going to correct, TFC's problems in clearing the box or
Hmm.
defending
Hmm.
set pieces, right? Like that's not going to help, right? So,
Yeah.
look, in the end of the day,
Two points that
yeah,
maybe
yeah,
will
go ahead.
refocus the conversation. And the first is, I actually think this is a pretty fair point. Maybe if you did more than one interview, you know what I mean? The fact that he's so invisible behind the scenes at TFC while it sputters into dust, I think, has created some of this powder keg. You know what I mean? So that when you do see him in for lack of a better word, an opportunity for access, people lose their minds. And then the second one is again Turts, and he said, "I'm sure he's dealt with worse at Napoli," and I'm
Well,
not
that's
sure
what I
if
was
I
getting
believe
to.
that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I
Oh,
believe that.
I'm sure he
Prodigal
has.
son.
I'm sure he has. There's been
But
tough
never.
Derby losses and things like that he's had to deal with.
But
Where
did they say
you're
get the
gonna,
hell out? Like, does it end with
hey,
absolutes, or is it delivered with a
it's football
never,
fandom,
don't do this? Yeah,
Jeff. It's
yeah,
football
I
fandom,
get.
man. Like people say wild
Yeah,
stuff all the
yeah,
time. You know that.
yeah.
I
I'm
know
twisting
that, right?
myself into pretzels here. You're right. You're right. I'm
Yeah,
trying to argue an inarguable point, but I do think there's some merit in, you know, just this power vacuum is manifesting in every way possible right now. This, and nature does abhor a vacuum, and I do think
fair.
the fans feel it, the club feels it. Nobody is dealing with it. It's there. Nobody's dealing with it, and you're seeing it manifest in these really, really, really strange ways.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see now that John Herdman's here because he's a man who like it or love it, loves the spotlight and can
Mm-hmm.
handle the camera. And I wonder if that will rub off on the players. But I do want to get to the lighter side of this. Okay,
Yes, please.
Lorenzo Insigne busting out Toronto slang. Man has been hanging around Marley Avenue. He's been hanging around Weston Road a lot. Maybe making some trips into Brampton with Jaquil and with with DeAndre Kerr. Like where, like I heard of the argument, and then I actually I didn't even the first time I looked at it didn't even listen to the audio. I just saw him obviously yelling at a fan. It was clear, and I was like, oh well, he's yelling at a fan. That that happens. And then somebody said, no,
Yeah.
listen to the audio. And he's dropping like waste man, like not once, but like several times. So clearly someone has taken the time to not only teach him the word, but the context on how to use it. Like, is he on like TO, like Urban Dictionary, figuring out like
So you're a
using
waste man
waste youth
truther
and all that kind
because
of like. Go ahead.
because it's turning into the blue purple dress thing. It's turning into one of those one of those conundrums. People hear respect in like a Neapolitan by way of English as a second language. Um, you know, I I don't care. It's waste man forever for me. You know,
It's
I
Wasteman
just
forever.
want
I'm
the
using
t-shirt.
Wasteman.
Yeah,
I
I
just
just
want to
want the
talk.
t-shirt.
I want to
I
speak it
want
into existence.
yeah, me too. Me too. It
Like,
could be respect, but I don't think I care. Like it's
oh,
waste man for me.
oh, I know. Like, okay, so I like know that some of these guys have gotten the like here is sort of the slang words in Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the things that we use to say certain things. So I know that has happened, right? I
Yeah. Oh
just
yeah.
maybe you guys are right. Maybe Rui, maybe you're right. Maybe I am trying to speak it into existence. That could
We
be
don't care.
true,
Waste
but
man's way cooler.
I want it to be real. I want it to be
Mm-hmm.
real
Mm-hmm.
because hey, look, this has been a tough season and he hasn't played well, and I want something to smile at when I think about Lorenzo
Yep.
Insigne. And I just want to smile thinking the man used waste man in an argument with a Toronto FC fan
I
in a
need a
suite.
t-shirt to go with my "We have an effing good team" Pozzuelo t-shirt. Like I absolutely need a waste man
Maybe we need to get
t-shirt
Annie on it.
so
Maybe we need to
badly.
get Annie on it.
But yeah,
Annie won't do
we
t-shirts
absolutely
anymore.
do. This being said, do you want waste man over him in the leather jacket special, or do you want waste man with him flipping off a Duncan from earlier in the season? Like I'm not sure
Oh,
which
ooh,
one makes a better
I think the
image,
latter.
right?
I'll take the latter.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah,
take the
it's a
latter.
bit of a cheat, but you know, we deserve some sort of fun this season, 100%. Anyway, Waste Man Forever. I know it's probably respect, but tell me you wouldn't buy that T-shirt. I think 100% of our audience would be in line to buy that T-shirt. So it's Waste Man.
100%. 100% I
Mm-hmm.
would buy that shirt.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, guys, you do want us to talk a little bit about the game, so let's get into the actual game itself. TFC 2, FC Cincinnati 3. I was standing beside you for the first half, JP, when we were watching it together.
Seeing my view, yeah, it was great.
Yeah,
Getting
it
all
was a great
tactical.
view. And look, it starts rough, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Go down 2-0 relatively early. It probably should have been 2-0 even earlier than it became 2-0
Yep. Yep.
at a certain point. And we were watching Lucho Acosta at times just carve TFC's midfield and defending apart with like simple, like through balls that were exquisite
Mm-hmm.
to Brandon Vasquez and to others on the FC Cincinnati team. And we're just like, how is TFC set up to handle any of this?
There were like two absolute sitters that went right across the face of goal, completely uncontested, that we were lucky to not get scorched on just because no one was there. But you know, yeah, they were having their way with us. It was ridiculous to watch. We had no answers, and we were just panicking at the back. You know.
Yeah, and look, and I think there were moments for TFC in transition before FC Cincinnati scored, so I don't want to necessarily say that there that there were that TFC were completely bereft of opportunities, but you did see a team that was, at least in those first, let's call it, 25 minutes, you saw a team that was very much wooden spoon contenders versus shield contenders. You could see why
Mm-hmm.
FC Cincinnati right now are kind of running away with the shield race, and are now officially confirmed as shield winners. Because we used to have a number 10 on TFC that used to do things like that. But now, that number 10 is on FC Cincinnati and was carving us apart. And look, again, the sort of the same kind of critiques that we've had of this team earlier this year.
And the same plaudits. Kobe Franklin was immense again.
He was.
He
But I also
really,
think
really
that's,
looked like, yeah.
set piece defending was another issue again.
Huge.
In a lot of ways on both goals where you can't really clear your box properly. I thought Mbika again had a little bit of a mare.
Class.
Yeah, just clearing the ball right at FC Cincinnati players at times.
Unbelievable.
And it was hard to watch a little bit. And I just want to pause on Mbika for a second, because he's one of the players that I have found have a very interesting arc in his very short time with Toronto FC. Right, he gets signed by Bill Manning, or sorry, by Bob Bradley, brought
Hmm.
in a sort of a minor deal with Inter Miami, and he comes in under Bob Bradley and looks, he looks good, right? He looks solid. He looks
Hmm.
like somebody that, maybe you can start to, build some depth around. Maybe he's not
Sure
going to be
did.
your every game starter, but he's definitely somebody that, okay, when you could throw him in there, he's at least going to be somewhat reliable. Man, has that dip just changed so quickly. And this is the kind of thing that you can see when a manager leaves. Like, as much as people were, and even on this show we were
Hmm.
saying, Bradley has to go at a certain point. You can see where the coaching style of Bob Bradley really works with some younger players, right? That are able to get some
Yeah, I'm not
confidence
giving
and
that to
play.
Bobby.
No,
I'm not giving that to Bob. And I will give Bob all of the plaudits and flowers that I can possibly give. This to me is just, change of scenery, fresh room, bad habits manifest. You can go anywhere you want, but you're going to take your problems with you. And I think that that's the case. If he had been kicking ass, or if he had had a successful career elsewhere, I mean, obviously he's younger, but if he had come to, like, I I I just don't I don't know how better to express it than the way I just expressed it. I think that this is who he really is, and what we saw at the outset was who he could be, but I don't think he's ever going to get there. I
yeah, but I
mean,
think
because
that what
because
he,
what we're seeing is just so bad. I mean, let's not mince words here. Like, the
yes,
basics aren't happening. Do you know what I mean? Like, we were
yeah, no,
playing Michael
100%.
Bradley out of position as cover for him because Terry Dunfield, who has the most woeful coaching record in the history of our club, franchise, whatever you want to call it, didn't trust him. Like, that is about as bad an admonishment as you can possibly get in Major League Soccer. So, I think it's fair to say there's no saving this guy. It's not happening out there on the field, and the basics are wrong. And I have cashed in Miami Mabika stock since what game was it where the third goal or the fourth goal or the 12th goal saw him just completely give up on the play
Against
and
the
that guy
NYCFC
walled.
away, yeah.
Yeah, that was it for me. I mean, there was trouble brewing, but that was it for me. That was when
Yeah,
I
and I
cashed in
get
on
what
my
you're
stock.
saying. I do get what you're saying. And Turds makes a good point that although he had a bit of a mare, he's the one coming out and doing the media, which speaks to our earlier
I mean,
comment
it's
about,
insane. It's
yeah,
insane.
it's insane that
It's
he gets
complete.
thrown out into
The
the fire.
last
But
person I want to hear from is Ami Mabika about anything at this point.
yeah,
So
but I
it's
mean,
like,
like,
you know,
yeah, but I think in the end of the day, right? Like, I do think there is something to say about, certain coaches have certain ways of being able to draw talent out of certain
hmm.
players, and you end up seeing what a coaching change can do to a player's confidence, right? If they're not getting picked, or maybe even they're being put into or being asked to do things that they're not yet comfortable doing.
Yeah,
Now, granted, the thing we kind of asked and maybe could do is be really big, be like 6'6" or
yeah.
6'7" as tall as he is, head the ball out,
Yeah, do
which
do
he was having
something
trouble
with
with.
those headers, attacking and defensively, that isn't like soft lobs that like anybody in their mother could intercept. Yeah. You say tomato, I say tomato. I just don't see it with this kid. Miami was really, it didn't take much to get him from Miami, and now we can see why.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Shout out to Luka Gavrin. In a lot of ways, I know obviously Jonathan Osorio will get man of the match because he scored the brace to get
Mm.
TFC back level. And it was actually a very good. I will give TFC some flowers. There was a good fight back here, down 2-0. Now, gifted a goal for sure. I'm sure the FC
Maybe
Cincinnati
two.
keeper wants that back. Maybe two, gifted 2 goals. But hey, look, you got it. You got
Hmm.
to be there to take those opportunities. And Jonathan Osorio is there.
They
But I
they
do
all
want
count.
to. Yeah, but I do want to speak about Luka Gavrin because I think this is an interesting case of a player who, and John Molinaro wrote a piece in TFC Republic about it, just a player that has earned the opportunity to get some minutes here. at TFC
100%.
by going through the pipeline. He was drafted by the club, has played at TFC2 for the majority of 2 seasons, right? Like, I know he's come up near
Yeah.
the end of the second TFC2 season. But I think he's a player that has sort of been able to take, his opportunity and grasp it by both hands. And you're
Yep.
kind of seeing that with some of these younger players. Now, I know, again, in a season where you're wooden spoon and everything seems to be going wrong, it's hard to try to find positives in young players that are kind of taking
It's
opportunities.
easy when you look there.
But I mean, if you look at Luka Gavin, if we talk about Kobe Franklin, I'm still positive on DeAndre Kerr. I know a lot of people aren't. I am.
I am.
But I think that we talk about Alfonso Cuello as well. There are some young players on this team that have sort of grasped an opportunity and taken their chance to stake a claim in this team somehow. And it'll be interesting again as John Herdman moves forward with how do I start to rebuild this club. Luke Gavin will be an interesting piece to see what he does with them going forward. I mean, I obviously we were talking about him a bit at the game. I just wanted to get your thoughts on his performance.
I mean, I think he's going to be Sean's number 2, if not our number 1, because I don't have a lot of faith that we're going to be able to hold on to Sean Johnson coming up. And I also think that, depending on how the other chips fall, we may meet his salary back in the coffers to do anything. So, when we look back on this season, which we'll be doing a lot in the off season with all sorts of special episodes. I'm sure you've seen the drop of that one awful Adama Diomande over under that we did that we all completely got wrong. Well, fellas, sports fans, they're all horrific, and we're going to have a show where we just sit and let you just throw vegetables at us because we're going to play them and then we're going to revisit them and it's going to be terrible and we're all going to learn so much about ourselves. These kids haven't just stepped up, but they've stepped up in an impossible situation. They've stepped up in a season where they were just treading water, where all of the hallmarks of being a younger player on a first team in tier 1 football were just atomized, right? Like, don't trust these guys. The guys that are paying the most, leave them. Like, they stake their own, and let's not forget, they're still playing against tier 1 opposition every week. So the fact that they were able to carve out identities for themselves on this Franken team, the fact that they were able to do what they did in this environment, it's unbelievable. If I'm John Herdman, these are like, I'm shaking all of their hands and I'm saying, what do we need to do to make next year better for you? Because, on paper, that's who you build a team around. Those are the guys you want to go to war with. They're not complaining about trench foot. They're not, they don't care about their muddy uniforms. They're out there taking bullets for you. That's who you want to go to war with. And not just that, but they're industriously advancing your forward line while you're getting pelted everywhere else, So, unbelievable amounts of respect for all of them. Franklin's immense. He's immense. I care less and less about losing Richie Larea with every game that I see Kobe Franklin play. I think that in some ways, the silver lining of losing Richie is that the emergence of Kobe and not having to fight for those minutes, which in a season without silver linings is freaking awesome. Cuello, and I think we need to start calling Cuello because that's actually how it's pronounced. So let's just do the Bernadeschi gambit and start calling Cuello. Speaking of which, I got an energy kit. I want Cuello on the back. Nobody can facilitate this. I have money. I just want someone to press the letter set on the back.
I think Real Sports can do it.
I called them today, and fingers crossed they might be able to order it on back order for me. So we'll see. But
Jesus, this season's shambles.
I mean, it's a shambles. We have no lids for the adult sippy cups. You can't get anybody on the back of your jersey unless his name is Bernadeschi or Insigne. And it's a mess. And to add insult to injury, like 3 rows down in 116, a guy's wearing an Island or an energy kit with Jaquil Marshall ready on it. I'm sure that was a custom jobby, because I can't imagine Real Sports had a whole bunch of JMR kits. So somewhere, somehow, someone can help me do this. I hope I haven't missed my window. I want those yellow letters on the back. Please, someone help a brother out. Yeah,
Yeah,
Quajo's role is hard.
it
Being a
is
number
hard.
6 is hard. Being a number 6 on a team, being a number 8. Look at Oso's decline, right? Being a number 8 is difficult on a team that's this unbalanced. Does he have mares? Absolutely, absolutely. But do they supersede the moments of brilliance? Absolutely not. This kid has his soccer IQ is off the charts. He's silky as all F. Let's not do a Frazier here, man. Let's blood this kid properly,
Yeah,
uh, and let him make some mistakes. Playing as a 6 ain't easy,
no,
and
it's
he's
not.
doing an
Not on a
admirable
team
job of
where,
it.
yeah, not on a team where that gives the ball away as much as this
As
team
much
does.
as
And look,
as we do,
he
yeah.
is guilty of some bad giveaways too. Let's not
No,
necessarily
of
absolve
course
them of
not.
all
Yeah,
blame. But at the same time, I think that each one of the players that you sort of talked about there has, as you say, kind of progressed through sort of the fog of this season and have been able to, show what they can do and how they can contribute on a first team level. And
yep.
that kind of gives you a little spark of hope for next season, right? I don't
Huge spark of
know
hope
if
for
this,
next season.
yeah,
Goosebumps.
well, I'll say smart. I mean, like, we'll see, right? Because it depends on how this rebuild will go, right? It depends on what John
Mm-hmm.
Herdman's really going to value in terms of moving forward. But I think that, if you pull it back to, again, somebody like Luca Gavrin, again, somebody like Kobe Franklin, DeAndre Kerr,
Mm-hmm.
a little less extent, but the pathway through TFC2 is starting to bear some fruit. Now, what exactly that fruit's going to end up being, we still need to find out to a
Mm-hmm.
certain extent. But like you're starting to see some of that actually pay off a little bit, and
100%.
and that's a good thing. That can only be a positive thing if you can start to find players that can
Massively
be
positive.
those role players that you can build around. Then I think you're
Yeah.
putting yourself in a better position. Does that make you a cup contender right away? Probably not. But it's the start. I mean, if you look at the way the team we lost to on Saturday sort of built itself up after being the worst team in the league for the first 3 years it joined MLS, to the way
Mm-hmm.
it started to build itself around a core and finding some young players that can fill some roles, and then you get sort of the right type of players around them that are quality. Then that's a good sort of recipe for success in MLS.
Mikey's gonna kill me. I didn't put up the banners until right now. Sorry, Mike, saying it's been a while since I've done this.
Whatever.
Um,
He's on Rodeo having a good time.
yeah, exactly. He's having like his 40th In-N-Out burger, animal style fries, by the way. Turt's coming in again. I love Alonso's confidence to keep trying to play out of pressure. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, being a 6 is hard. Being a ball winning, creative 6 is next to impossible. He's putting in the hard yards. I don't know the best way to say this. The whole time you were talking, I'm sorry, I was trying to construct my sentence, but like, if you had on paper, this is youth working out, right? We often over the years have talked about the path to the first team and successfully blooding our young players. The fact is that it's happening and we're not recognizing it because it's just been so bad. I mean, these guys took it upon themselves and ran through the gauntlet of their own volition, almost of their own momentum and motivation, and proved themselves willing role players on an absolutely garbage team, right? That bodes so well for the future. It's one of the only positives that I think we can take unilaterally out of this season. Uh, you know, and I think that that we need to celebrate it more. I really, really do.
No,
Honestly,
I
like having
agree.
this conversation makes me want to go scream from the mountaintops that there is one positive that came out of this year, and it's the emergence of the kids. You know, just compare JMR, who were still dicking around, for lack of a better word, right? Like these guys made their own luck. You know, if anything, I could make an argument that it points to the ineptitude of the front office. The people that they're paying attention to, the JMRs, sputter. The people that come in and just put their head down and do a job, we're talking about on Mondays. So, you know, hopefully this influx of new front office staff means that that will flip and they'll have a firmer idea of the people that should be celebrated and stop mismanaging the people that are falling through the cracks.
For sure. And let's talk a little bit about this new sort of managed structure, at least on the field.
You like my segue there, huh?
Officially, yesterday was John Herdman's first day as manager. Though, for those who have not heard, Terry Dunfield will still be on the field with the team and as manager for the next, I think, 3 games, basically till the end of the season.
Forever.
Yeah,
you can check it
I think it's to the end of the season.
Never leave. Yeah,
I heard 2 games, but I actually think it's till the end of the season, right? Because they have 3
I
more
heard
games
one game. I heard the last game. I mean, you've all seen it. There's a 3-minute John Herdman getting, you know, his perfectly coiffed hair blown ever so slightly by the lakeshore breeze, explaining his master plan manifesto, and it sounds to all the world like a whole bunch of excuses. You know, listen, sometimes Occam's razor, you know, the simplest truth is the truth. Would you want your career with TFC to start with how many games are left? Four losses.
3.
How many losses are left? Yeah, exactly. It's a face saving move at the expense of everybody's favorite sacrificial lamb, Terry Dunfield. And again, what are 3 more games going to do to his managerial career? The man is now, his wagon is hitched to TFC until probably forevermore as a consequence of this. Yeah, it's cynical and it sucks, but we all knew it was coming. And I don't know if calling him a coward makes sense. You know, we hired a guy who likes optics. One of his greatest skills is optics. What is resetting a culture if not getting everybody to believe your own BS? Because it is all BS. You win and everything's fine. You lose and everything sucks. Like, you know, culture. So at the end of the day, I don't think it's cowardly. I think we should have expected it. And if anything, once again, it's another symbol of the incompetence and the ineptitude of the club, because for a club that's this obsessed with controlling their own narrative, this season has been one PR disaster after another. There was absolutely no reason to set out a timeline. And then you get caught with your pants down, and here we are.
I get what you're saying, and I get kind of what you're saying there, and but I'm not sure. I think we said it earlier when he was first hired, and we found out that the start date was October 1st. It's like, okay, like I don't think this is the biggest deal in the world, really, that he's not on the sideline for the final 3 games.
It's anti-football, and I think you have to allow for that when you sign a manager, unless it's what's his face, David Moyes. I mean, I can count on one hand the amount of examples, and it's usually at your club actually of not caretaker managers, but like administrative managers that come in and are managers in all but name and have that kind of weird sort of bubble where they're not accountable yet. So. But it's not.
But every manager has, like, even if they take the touchline, there is a time and period where you're kind of like, okay, we're going to give the manager a bit of grace, right? Like we did the same thing with Bob Bradley last year, right?
If that's so, then I mean, it was, and I think that doubly proves my point of why Herdman wants that insulation, right? Because you pointed out yourself, like Bob Bradley came in with that same margin of allowed suckitude. And look at what happened when the calendar year turned, and here we were in this new campaign. So I think the optics of it are. I mean, who would?
It's a bit
the question
harsh,
to
I think.
our listeners: who did anybody actually expect him to take over on the 1st of October? Because I
look, like I thought that he would at least take 2 games, sure, on the touchline. The fact that he may only take 1 or none doesn't exactly surprise me. I think, one, he had a contract to fulfill with Canada Soccer, right? It's not like Canada Soccer clearly were not going to just let him go. They clearly wanted him to finish his work. get Mauro Briello prepared for the October window. And from that perspective, I think you have to deal with that. Also, I think, from a perspective of, I think he needs to take a step back and assess the team, from sort of a stepped back point of view. Yes, of course, everybody's going to think like he needs to get hands on with the players. He needs to get in and get tactics. It's 3 games that don't matter, right? Like at the end of the day, if he takes a look back and it gives him opportunities to not just assess talent on a football perspective, but personalities in a room. Some personalities he's going to know because obviously he's close with the national team and a lot of the players have been in the national camps, at some point.
Yep.
And some players he'll have never known and have maybe only had a text message conversation or a quick phone call after he was hired. So giving him that opportunity to properly assess, right? Like, right?
Yeah.
Like, to properly assess what he's got to work with and what he's got to do. Like, he's going to have to figure that out relatively quickly because, once the season's over, he's going to have to assess who am I keeping? Who am I putting up for the million different MLS drafts that are going to be available, right? So I get that. If he's got to take that time, I'd rather you take that time and get it right, than rush him in to do something that, like, what? Okay, we get maybe a little moral boost. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think you, in a roundabout way, are saying exactly what I think, which is that this team is so broken, there's no fixing this team. There's no winning with this team. There's no stepping in with this team. The real work starts in the off season, and it's shedding this roster to within an inch of its life, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing that he can do right now. So
no, I agree. I think
yeah.
No, sorry. I think the mistake you mentioned from a PR perspective is just saying that he starts October 1st. Like, why October 1st?
100%.
Like, just say it at the end of the season. At that
we
point.
hired him for next year, and that's that. Because now you have everybody spinning their wheels, creating conspiracy theories, going out into the weeds. And again, this is a club that is obsessed with controlling their own narrative, and they've allowed this to happen for the upteenth time this season. It makes absolutely no sense. It points to one hand not knowing what the other hand is doing, right? And even worse, because at the end of the day, it's inescapable. It points to how completely broken this squad is, and that we might as well forfeit the rest of the season because nothing is happening. Nothing's moving. Why not have the guy that does the platitudes as the press conference that nobody believes in, that nobody trusts, just take us out, pull the string, because it's over. And I don't want to talk about the DPs. I don't want to talk about Michael Bradley. I don't want to talk about this camp, that camp, this camp. We all know the specifics. We're here, right? This is proof positive that there is no fixing this squad. And the first and only step one is blowing it up. And he's not doing that right now. So why bother?
Yeah, fair enough.
That to me screams it from the mountaintops.
Well, here, and just to go down really quickly. So obviously John Herdman's in. We now have who are his first team staff are going to be. Yeah, so Eric Tonaldo's coming in as assistant coach and performance lead. All these names for Canadian soccer national team fans should be somewhat familiar because they all are coming from Canada Soccer with John. So Simon Eady is the tech coordinator and he's a goalkeeper coach. So we'll get to goalkeeper coach in a second. Robin Gale, former women's national team player, Olympic bronze medalist, is the performance and wellness coach. Same role she held with the national team, and Alex Dodgson has come in as sort of, I don't know if he's actually head of scouting. I think we need some clarification on that, but he's also the analytics coach as well. I think he's coming in almost as head of scouting, but we can figure out and see if we can confirm
in a caretaker role. I think, I think that. Paul Larry, did I mangle his last name?
Well, Saltieri. Yeah, so we don't know. He's apparently he may be back next season. I don't know in what
best
capacity.
Job in the world, paycheck, and doesn't have to show up. Yeah,
there had been good discussions with him once they had actually fired Bob Bradley, but I haven't heard anything since that point. So maybe he is not coming back. But another person who is not coming back for sure is John Conway, who has been the long time Toronto FC goalkeeper coach. I can't believe it's pretty much, he's been the goalkeeper for almost a decade. about a decade he's
Yeah,
been with the club. But he
long
will
time.
not be returning as the goalkeeper coach. He actually, I think his last game was at the end of August. Was the last time he was with the first team. So just interesting,
Mm.
obviously, a shift. This is a team that's going forward is going to start assessing the talent on this squad and figuring out kind of who's staying and who's going, along with
I
Jason
can help.
Hernandez and Bill Manning. I mean, I think, some people
Hmm.
have pointed out in the comments here, is there a concern that this first team staff, along with the manager, have no club experience?
Zero. That's who I
No
want,
concerns for
man.
you?
No concerns. That you got to blow this thing up. The last thing I want is stodgy old establishment people. I want fresh minds, fresh ideas. It can't get any worse, man. Honestly, this is the time that you bring in a fresh perspective. And it's not like they're coming from, I mean, I was going to say lacrosse, but where did Bruce Arena get his start, if not lacrosse? And he's one of the winningest coaches, forget about the last 6 months of his life. But like, you, we are in no position to dictate terms. And if I'm choosing between stodgy old way and flashbang new way, there'll never be a better time to do it. So let's try it, because at the very least we can cross that off on the endless TFC ledger and maybe never do it again. But let's do it. Let's try it. You know? Oh, did I lose Mike? Is Mike? Is it just me now? I think it's just me now. This is scary. Uh, Shenanigans. Yay. Boomslang. Let's talk about what. Well, let's see what's going on. Yeah, he is frozen. He's 100% frozen. This is hilarious. I feel like what do you guys want to talk about? Let's go. Oh, whoa! I hate that. Let's not do that. I can't not do that. All right, they're staring at me. The fix has to start from the top. The internal TFC office is just a complete mess. They are understaffed and overworked. Manning needs to go. Guys, I don't think Manning's going anywhere. I think he's been instrumental in the. Oh, here we go. Mike's coming to rescue me from from doing whatever the fuck I was just doing. Hold on, let me bring him back in. There we go.
Internet was not liking my takes, man.
No
Not
worries,
having it
man.
at
My
all.
vamping was amazing. I am really good at that, guys. Like I had everybody just wrapped around my finger. We're talking about Bill Manning again, because
Yeah,
we always
well,
do.
yeah.
And I'm saying I don't think he's going anywhere. I think
No.
the best we can hope for is he takes a step back, seeds soccer operations, soccer decisions, maintains being a financial boardroom guy. I think that's the best you can hope for. He's
Yeah,
part and parcel with our 2026 World Cup bid. MLSC at a corporate level is a disaster right now. There's a lot of moving pieces. And he's doing stuff with the Argos. I mean, as Martin Bailey so eloquently said over the weekend when Argos fans went after him, and he said, "You're espousing that the $10 million franchise is in some way have precedence over the $1 billion franchise." He's right, but at the end of the day, that's the best you can hope for. And that is almost like Manning leaving, guys. You're not going to get your pound of flesh. In life, you almost never do. It's not fair. Life is not fair. I don't think I need to tell you that. But if he's willing to cede the decisions that he's made poorly and do the decisions that he's made well, whether you agree with me or not, I think that's the best we can hope for. And I think that might be what we eventually end up seeing.
Yeah,
Diminished
I
expectations.
Yeah, I think so. And look, he as much as I have some of my gripes with some of the decisions that have been made.
Yes, to
At
answer
that
Christopher's
level,
question, he was instrumental in the the World Cup bid, 100%.
yes, he was. Yeah, he was.
Instrumental.
He actually really was. Yeah, and especially with the city as well.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of that, yeah, I think you're right. I don't think he's going anywhere. The only way I think that he may have to face the music is if something with Jason Hernandez doesn't go right, or if this hire with John Herdman doesn't go right, which I think there is a chance. There is a chance that things don't work out here. There's a massive risk. It is a bit of a risk. Like, look, I think that there is. I get the appeal as to why Bill would go down this route, or why the MLSE board would go down the
Mm-hmm.
John Herdman route. In terms of, obviously, he's well known to Canadian soccer fans. People like him. He is personable. As much as we do get on John Herdman sometimes tactically, he does get stuff right tactically. Like he's not inept in
Mm-hmm.
that regard. But
Yeah.
I
I'm
do,
sure we're gonna have an easier time than Belgium at the World Cup with Real Salt Lake on a Saturday.
yeah.
At
But I mean,
7 p.m.
but I do
Yeah.
think that he's on a last sort of chance, with TFC, right? Like,
We've said that.
even
We've
though,
said that the man's bulletproof. We've said that for the last.
I
We said
mean,
that after
to a certain
Armas.
extent. Yeah, to a certain extent, but I think there will be a limit. There will be a limit from the board in terms of how much they can take, right, and how much losing they want to do. And
Mm-hmm.
this club will eventually make a move if they give him another coach that they have to pay out again because they had to
Mm-hmm.
release that one, and another GM that they had to fire again because they got to pay Jason Hernandez out. Like, that becomes money to the board, right? And like, okay, is it
Right.
Leaf Raptor money? No, but at the same time, still money. And the board doesn't necessarily want to keep paying for people to not work with them. They already did that with Mike Babcock, and they didn't love that the first time.
I mean, it's easy arithmetic. You can't ask for two diametrically opposed personalities than Bob Bradley and John Herdman, and they are both now facing the same conundrum, which is, I have my ideas on how to build a team and how I like to play, except for the fact that my entire 75% of my budget is being spent on two players that force me to adhere to a system who are halfway out the door and whose allegiances seem to shift with the tides, right? He's got the same issue that Bob had, which is you've got a mandate to do your thing, and then immediately are kneecapped to being able to do it with 25% of your resources, right? So his destiny lives or dies in the same way as Bob Bradley's destiny at TFC lived or died. What can he do with the wingers, right? You can put me on record. I don't think you can do anything with these guys. I think at best you get a week out of them before something shiny squirrel changes the rules of the game again. And I think it's too long and too much rot and too much comfort in this specific position with this specific club to keep trying, because that's the best you're going to get. Anybody expecting a buy-in and them suddenly to be kumbaya-ing, is it's not happening. It's just not happening.
No.
So
can
we
I do
by
agree
with a week here, a week there, dealing with this, dealing with that? We may have to. These are albatross contracts now in a way that we've never ever seen before, right?
Yeah.
So
I think you
I have
can
a
get rid
ton
of
of
one.
trepidation.
Yeah. I think you may move
Yeah, I have a
one.
ton of
I don't know
trepidation.
about two. Yeah, and
A ton of trepidation.
Friend of the show, Sonia Missio, just saying here.
Mm.
Oh, I'm glad. I thought I was the only one that thought John Herdman was a wild card. Look, a lot of people do. A lot of people do. I think a lot of people have hope based on his track record of building teams and building groups of people. The on pitch.
This is the toughest test.
We're going to see. It is the toughest test for him. I think this is the toughest test. I think the national team was the men's national team. Well, I actually think the women's national team was the second toughest test for him, because I think picking that team, not to go deep into the women's national team lore, but picking that team up after that World Cup where they were that bad, bad as the one that just passed. What that looked like in the Carolina Marachi era and how bad that was.
Yeah, just
to find somebody who could pick that group up and keep them going. That was an amazing bit of work. He's going to have to almost do something like that again with Toronto FC. All right, let's start to wrap this thing up. Let's get into the burning question here. Oh, you got to jump into something quick? Yeah.
Because why haven't the fans turned on the team in the same way they did with Bradley early in the season? It's pathetic, disrespectful product. They should be getting booed off the field. I got two answers to this, Kieran.
That's a good question.
One is exhaustion. Two is there was still a chance with Bob Bradley. We were still playing coulda, shoulda, woulda, right? Get Bradley out, maybe hire a number 9. It fixes everything. Get Bradley out. Let the DPs, assert themselves in a new environment without their number one lightning rod or punching bag. That doesn't exist anymore. I don't want to say hopeless, But the tacit understanding in the fan base is that we're just playing up the string right now, right? So what's the point of booing this team? They're not going to be here. It's like people screaming, why aren't we giving Ibarra more minutes? Who cares? Who cares? Give him no more minutes.
Well, he's not coming back next season. He's definitely going back to Atlanta.
Somebody said on my WTR article as a comment, and I can't remember who it was, but they said, Ibarra is looking unfit. Who cares? Let him eat. Let him go to Burgers Priest all he wants. That man should be getting no more minutes on this team. So who are we going to boo? Are we going to boo the wingers? Why? They don't care about anything, and we're just going to lose your voice for nothing. Are you going to boo the team that is going to be gutted in the off season? No. Why? Drink your beer, have your fun, smoke them if you got them. Who cares, right? So I think, Kieran, that's why. Speaking from my own experience, I don't see a point. It's gallows humor time, guys. Like, you enjoy the fun times with your friends, go home and do something else.
Also, I would say, Jeff, that there isn't really a history at this club of booing the team off the field. Like, it doesn't, like, in all the years faces. I have gone to this club, other than really, I guess maybe the 2012, 20 sort of 11, honestly, 12, 13 run there was a little bit of that. But it wasn't as heavy, like, after the D-Row check celebration stuff, and like, you're thinking about that era of TFC. There was a little bit of that.
I'm saying for a club as young as we are, we have had, I think, above average moments of proper frustration. The town hall where we went after the front office, I do think that our collective history, there have been innumerable examples, maybe not the ultras getting a megaphone and having a field day with the players on the pitch like's been happening all over Europe, but again, let's not reinvent history here. There have been many moments in the short history of our club where we have said we're mad as hell and we're not going to take it anymore, and have instigated change. So I don't think that this club is that unsophisticated. I stand by my I think booing at this point does nothing. It makes us feel bad. It doesn't get through to the people on the pitch because they don't care, because they're just going through the motions. So, all of life is a chess game. And I think collectively everybody sort of understands that what's the point? What's the point? There was a point when we were booing
I'll take that.
Bob Bradley earlier in the season.
Yeah.
Now there isn't. Now there isn't. There's no point
other
than losing your voice
that.
and making yourself miserable. So I think accidentally or on purpose, we've come to that conclusion, and that's why we're not booing.
Yeah, I'll take that. I will say though that in Sonia again says the paper bag era. Yeah, there was an era.
Yeah, that's what I said right away.
Paper bags with heads. Yeah, this is true. It's true. And I was at that town hall.
We booed. We've booed.
Yeah. We have booed this team. It is true. It is true. I was at that town hall. That was. Cool.
Christopher says it else. In a roundabout way. It seems like the fans are just being empathetic, realizing the players are just sad, frustrated as us. We're all exhausted. There's so much truth in that, but it's also not an excuse. You're a professional soccer player. I mean, I don't know if you were here. I don't know if we were standing together, if I said this to you, or if I said this to my other friend that was with me on the night, but they don't. So many people try at being professional soccer players and fail. So whether you're on a crap team, whether you're not getting minutes, whether your foot hurts or you don't have the right OVO sponsorship or whatever the hell, and you were saying it last week.
Yeah.
Take some pride in the fact that you're doing something that almost 99% of the people that try don't get to do. You made it. I see none of that pride. None of that, aside from the Kobe Franklins and the Luka Gavrins that are really, 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 looking so good out there because everybody else looks so bad, right? That personal pride, that personal motivation that comes from being one of the select chosen few is absolutely gone. It's like they're not even, and that's an insult. That's an insult to the people coming up that want their position, and it's an insult to the other people playing. Like, not everybody gets to do this just because they want to, and you do. and you have no pride for the badge. You have no pride for yourself. You just want it to be over. We should never get to that point. I mean, that is the real tragedy here. Is we've allowed our club by a snowball effect of various different things, and it's not just this year, and it's not just the DPs. We've allowed our club to get to this level, and that's the real tragedy. I mean, booing now, who cares? Hindsight is always 20/20, but we should have booed a long time ago.
It's
hell
true.
of a long
It's true.
time ago.
In a lot of ways, we still lived off the glow of those championship years and thought it would come back a lot quicker.
100%.
But that's just how sometimes it works.
It's just how the cookie crumbles. Yep.
But although, Turts, you say apathy, as we're going to prove in the burning question here, maybe it's not as much apathy as you think it is.
Hold on. Oh, I screwed it up, didn't I? There it is.
The burning question presented by Nextdoor. Nextdoor is the official community app of Toronto FC. It's also where you connect with the people and local businesses in your community. Download Nextdoor and find soccer fans in your neighborhood, like on the Toronto FC fan community group. We've been posting there, interacting with people all season. You can download the Nextdoor app at the App Store or on nextdoor.ca. And kudos, Jeff. Turts is saying the volume is perfect now.
I know. I made Turts happy. I'm real happy.
There you go.
Real happy.
The question we asked you this week was just simply, if you're a TFC season ticket holder like I am, like Jeff is, are you renewing next season, right? Is this enough? Has this culmination, and sort of the reasoning behind this question is like, has the culmination of all of this over the last couple of seasons just left you kind of like, or are you still in? Are you still bought in on the future? And look, I'll go through. And
we're also trolling the classic flounce post, which you see everywhere, which is at the turn of every hat. I'm canceling my season tickets, which is generally BS. Almost 100%.
Well, I mean, I have seen a few that actually have gone ahead and done it, but for the vast majority are renewing, right? The vast majority are renewing, which
or never have them. Or
and look, I of course I am renewing. I have some trepidations around it, but I am renewing. That said, I get why people who have chosen not to aren't. I completely get it. And to me, this is even a little bit different than the bad days, right? I think there is something behind it. But let me get into some of these comments from you guys, some of the listeners here. So from the community fan group on Nextdoor, Gilberto says, yes, I'm renewing my season tickets. I know we're all upset at the front office, but the passion for the team is deeper, so I'll be back. I'm hopeful Herdman can have a positive outcome and steer the ship in the right direction, which I think there's a lot of that. A lot of that going around here. Marco from the same TFC community group says, I am, and it's because regardless, I will stand by my team. This has been the worst season in our history, and at times I felt abandoned. And that's where I'm coming back to in terms of why I understand why people might not be renewing. Because there's in a lot of ways, a lot of people do feel abandoned by the club. And, to constantly say, and I see the comments out there that, oh, well, you're supposed to be a real supporter. A real supporter never gives up. A real supporter never drops their seats. Like, I understand it to a certain extent.
What
but
if they can't afford it anymore? What if they have a kid or an illness in the family?
Yeah,
what,
that
not
too.
A real
but
fan
even if
anymore?
you don't,
you're an asshole.
Yeah, but even 100%. But even if it's for reasons of, I feel this club has abandoned me, or I don't think this club is exuding the principles that it says it does,
you don't
or
know
has
the club
aspired
anything.
to be.
Do you, man? You don't know.
Yeah,
the club
I get it. I get it because they have in a lot of ways. They have abandoned those things.
But in the same context, we need to be clear. Oh, sorry, I interrupted you, and I just saw your.
No, go. No. Say what you gotta say.
Please,
you were saying something good.
Well, in the same context, we have to be clear of what the club owes you. Does it owe you Lorenzo Insigne on a chair over a pool that you can throw vegetables at and try and dunk him? Because I don't think so, right? I do think that line is getting very, very muddy. The club owes you a venue with which to spend money on concessions and watch soccer. They're not coming to your kid's birthday party, and they don't owe you, a Christmas card, right? Those things are added value to your thing, but they don't owe you shit from Shinola, if you excuse my language. And at the end of the day, I think there is a disconnect. Like, well, how many sport season tickets events do I need to go to? Zero. That's a perk that is happening that they can easily take away. All that you're guaranteed is your seats. They're season seats. That's it. So if you're unhappy because you're not getting the perks or this and that and this, that sounds to me like a you problem. But there is no, everybody's experience is different. And if this was your Waterloo with the club, more power to you. Do you? I mean, I'm renewing my season seats, but I am not going to get up on a soapbox and say you don't get to decide what to do with your money and your time. There are a lot of reasons why it makes sense to not renew. People with young
Sonia,
kids,
you're right.
their kids to games anymore.
Yeah, Sonia, you're right. They used to send Christmas cards. But you know what? Beyond that, I think more to my point is like, look, people, like if you're listening to the show, you're a hardcore TFC fan. You're spending your Monday night with us, talking about a wooden spoon team that is nowhere close to being anywhere good. And we appreciate that. Fair. Thank you. Keep listening. Click subscribe. But also, expect a type of sort of, I don't know if the right word is sort of give back from a club. And I'm not talking about like in physical stuff, right? I'm talking about the idea that a club is supposed to, I'm saying maybe we are. The club is supposed to mean something, right? Everybody lives by words. More than a club, never walk alone, all that kind of stuff. And yes, okay, some of it is now marketing jargon and speak and stuff like that, for sure. But like at the same time, people gravitate around that. Like, you form groups of friends. Yeah, you form groups of friends in your seats, whether you're in the South End or you sit on the West Side, and you have a group of people that you have been sitting with for years. You're build a community, and 100%. And you want that community to be respected by the club. And sometimes this club does not respect those communities, right? They don't 100%. Respect you sometimes as a fan. And if you're walking away because you think the club is not respecting you as a fan, if you think the club is no longer living to some of the ethos of all for one, or the idea of putting, an entertaining product that really does fight for the badge and cares about representing Toronto in this league.
All good reasons, because you're right.
Decent reason to me. Like I don't blame you, because in a lot of ways they have not lived up to those things, and you have a complete right to sort of walk away from that perspective. But let's talk about some more people who are clearly going to stay as TFC season seat holders. Turts just saying, he's out of seats from before the team had a name. Not going to give them up after a few poor seasons. Look, if you have been a long-time seat holder, I've been a long-time seat holder, not since day one, but pretty close. We have seen bad football. We have seen horrible, bad football. Like, we have seen giving up a goal 30 seconds off a Torsten Frings kickoff in a game, bad. That kind of bad. We will see better days.
And we'll see bad days again.
And we'll see more bad days, and we may see more bad days next year. So Turt's totally feel you there. And Sean just saying, first season as a season seat holder, renewing because it can only get better, ... right?
There you go, Shawnee.
At some point, it may not be right away, Sean, but if you buy, it's like Sean, trying to sell people stock. It's like, if you buy now, in the next couple of years, you will see the appreciation. You will see the value in like 10 years. Hopefully it's not 10 years, Sean. Turts probably had to go through to actually see some success at this club. But I get it from that perspective. I'm going to just read off two more. Gray saying, yes, have had tickets since day one, always will. I'm a supporter of this club, not a fair weather fan. I get what you're saying there, Gray, too. I also get it, again, like I said, if you think this club isn't respecting you as a seat holder and you want to bounce, respect. I completely understand that. And one, Jeffrey
Yeah.
P. Nesker writes in saying, support your team in glory, support your team in misery, otherwise fuck off, question mark. You know,
well, I don't know who said it. Was it Socrates? Who was it? Was it Cicero?
Yeah,
I don't
that's
remember.
right.
Yeah.
I don't know, but yeah, I totally get it. You know,
But I mean,
in a
that's
lot
such
of
hipster bullshit. Honestly, like it really is. It's designed to make me feel better when I'm watching a losing team, right? But like I look at Benfica, who the Gutman curse. Like supporting teams isn't all rosy all the time, and that's what makes the victory so much sweeter. But yeah, I mean, we are idiots. We're idiots. This is how we choose to spend our money. This is how we choose to navigate our lives. We take the bad with the good. This year, a lot more bad than good. If it's too much for you, that's your decision. And we do not have the privilege to tell you it's wrong.
Absolutely. And Chris, just to answer your question, I know Turt's kind of got it in there as well. Yes, South End season tickets do go up every year. Generally speaking, unless there is a price freeze.
Didn't this year.
But of course, it depends on it. Like there is a price freeze this year. Does depend though on when you signed with the club. So when you first started your membership will determine your price, whether you get sort of they call it legacy pricing. So I get the legacy pricing. I think Jeff, you're a legacy too, right? You got some legacy.
I think
stuff.
I do. I'm not sure. I
over
just
8 years, right? I think they consider legacy
Yeah.
8 years and over. So if you've been a seat holder that long, then you probably have some legacy pricing depending on when you signed up. But that you don't care about, or at least that's your own private business. Let's wrap up the show here. Thank you again for tuning into another Toronto Till I Die episode. We really appreciate it. Obviously, this community is growing. You are spending a Monday night talking about a terrible football club. We really do appreciate it. Tell your people how much you like the show by leaving us a review or a thumbs up. If you're watching on YouTube, again, give us the old thumbs up and subscribe. That really does help. If you're listening on the podcast version of the show right now, if you're on Apple Podcasts, give us a review. I think you can also
the last one's from March. You guys got to get in there. I want to read some
exactly. If you can do us a review, that would be great. And then for Spotify, leave us some stars, preferably 5. That would be awesome. And that will help people find the show. For Jeffrey P. Nesker, I'm Mike Newell. Thanks. We'll see you next week.
No, hold
Cheers,
on,
everybody.
hold on. Mike.
Respect.